Hey retro gamers. Today on Smashing Bricks, we lull the old one to its eternal slumber in Demon Souls for the PlayStation 3. Hey, welcome back to Smashing Bricks, a retro gaming podcast. This is episode 28. My name is Eddie Inzauto, and today I'm joined once again by our old pal, Anthony LaBella. Hey, Anthony.
Hello. Thanks for having me again.
Of course. Why wouldn't we have you for this very special game?
Yeah, this might be the game I've been most excited to talk about from all the episodes I've done.
Just been waiting.
Yeah, right.
Since the beginning of this podcast. Yeah. So, listeners know Anthony, listeners know me. But what do they know about our game? Let's get to it. It is Demon Souls. Holy moly. And it just became eligible with our 15 years or older criteria. And it kind of made me question whether 15 years is retro. Because it felt brand new.
Right. It feels more recent. Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's something to consider for me in the background for future episodes. But for now, what is Demon Souls, Anthony?
Well, Demon Souls is a third-person action RPG from developer FromSoftware. You know, when I was growing up, I didn't really know the name, but, you know, now that I have some video game history, they did the Kingsfield games on PlayStation and PlayStation 2, and a lot of the DNA of Demon Souls comes from that. So very dark and macabre and really forward-thinking in its combat, which we'll obviously delve into, but I feel like it was kind of an auspicious start for this game, because I don't know, you know, Souls is very popular now, but it was not wildly popular in 2009 when it came out.
Right. Yeah, this one was a surprise, it seemed, for a lot of gamers. And it almost didn't make it. It almost didn't spawn the following Dark Souls series, which was, you know, its ultimate progeny. But yeah, third-person action RPG, behind the character, you know, similar perspective as what people call character action now, but with a totally different pace. Slow, methodical, very interesting control scheme where you have to be intricate and precise with your movements. Right. It's got that horror vibe a little bit. Pretty difficult.
Yeah, I liken it to Monster Hunter in the sense that it's very animation based, right? I guess that's what I think of when I think of that animation based combat, because Monster Hunter, you know, was very popular at the time. So I think that's probably the closest analog in terms of combat priority. Committing to an attack, and you're kind of, you know, locked in at that point.
Yeah, you have to wait for the whole thing to go through. And yeah, we're exploring different branches in a world from a hub world and playing through levels, getting to bosses, defeating bosses, moving on, leveling up through a fairly traditional kind of Western RPG leveling system, character building system, even though it's a Japanese game. And you guys probably know what it is. It's a Souls game. It's the first Souls game. It made Souls games. So, what is your prior relationship with Demon Souls? Did you play it in the first year in 2009, or did you come to it later?
So I did play it in 2009. It was the first Souls game I ever played. The first Souls game I ever fell in love with was Dark Souls, because I played Demon Souls in 2009, and I remember watching an X-Play review. And I think it might have been an import review. I don't think it had come out in the United States yet. I think think it came out in October, and I want to say the review was maybe a month or two before that. And I
Okay.
remember looking at it and thinking, this looks really unique. And there was a lot of praise in that X-Play review. So I remember buying it when it came out in October. And I played up until the spider boss in the tunnels.
Mm-hmm.
And back then, I did not have the level of patience that I have nowadays. So I
Mm.
remember thinking, this game is way too hard. It seems cool, but I don't have it in me to play through this game. So I stopped after. I don't even think I beat the spider boss. I had only gone through the first couple levels, and then just couldn't get over that hump. And then in 2013, I played Dark Souls for the first time because I had heard so much praise over the last couple years in 2011 and 2012. Loved it so much. Went back with my original copy of Demon Souls, played through that. Absolutely loved it. It's an all-time favorite now. But I remember being initially just kind of put off by the difficulty, which I'm sure is true of a lot of people back in 2009.
Hmm. Okay. Yeah, yeah, that's pretty. I think that's pretty common. A lot of people will talk about how they bounced off it, they came back to it later, and then it
Yeah.
clicked, and then they started to love it. But a lot of
Hmm.
people also bounce off it forever. A lot of people bounced off Demon Souls or Dark Souls probably, and then tried Dark Souls 2 and bounced off that, and tried Dark Souls
Yeah.
3 and bounced off of that. So it's
Hmm.
not necessarily for everyone,
Right.
but
Although some people played it day one and loved it, right?
yeah, some people like me. I played it before day one, actually.
Oh, right.
We reviewed this. I reviewed this on GamerNode. I got an early copy with just a printed CD label on it from Atlas, who was the US publisher, and I took to it immediately. It felt like just the perfect thing for me as a lover of this sort of dark fantasy, a lover of that sort of character building, and those kind of like D&D systems
Hmm.
where you're building up. That's what I mean by when I said like Western RPG
Oh,
systems.
sure. Yeah.
And the vibe was immaculate for a lover
Yeah.
of fantasy and of horror. The atmosphere was very horror like. It reminded me a lot of the feeling that you get when you're walking around the Resident Evil mansion. You don't know
Sure.
what's around the corner. And I just loved it right away. I'm going to read you real quick the final paragraph in my review.
Yeah.
Demon
Let's
Souls
hear
is
it.
a unique and awesome experience. Its immense and immersive world, fine control scheme, deep gameplay, and creative concepts are hampered minimally by the frustration of the grind and a daunting level of difficulty. The game engages players from beginning to end and keeps calling them back for more. PlayStation 3 owners would be making a mistake to pass up what is one of the best games of 2009 so far. 9.5 out of 10. Eddie Inzauto,
Nice.
October 6th, 2009, the day it came out.
So you were on the right side of history immediately.
Yeah, I was. But it's been 15 years, and all of this could have changed when we played it. Maybe I hate it now. It's
Hmm. Hmm.
possible. But okay, so that's us. What let's go through some of the details. So we said February 5th, 2009 in Japan. Came out June 25th in PAL region. So it hit all those PAL regions before it got to the US. So we started to see some of those reviews coming in.
I don't think I knew that.
No, neither did I actually until just now. And then, as we said, October 6th in the USA, it was on the PlayStation 3 only. It was exclusive because it was originally Sony published. It was a Sony game in Japan. And then, well, it was published by Namco Bandai in PAL regions and Atlas in the USA. And why was that? Well, because it wasn't immediately successful in Japan. It sold about 20,000 units in the first week in Japan, which was very minimal compared to what they wanted. It was intended originally to be a competitor or just something to counter Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion, which
Mm.
originally was an Xbox exclusive.
Hmm.
So Sony needed something. It was proposed by Sony to FromSoftware to make something like this to be competitive. And who did they go to? They went to FromSoftware because they had done the Kingsfield games. They had recently done Shadow Tower Abyss, which I think actually has a little bit more in common with the Souls games than the Kingsfield games. And it was originally a team that did not include Hidetaka Miyazaki, who
Hmm.
we know as sort of the father of Souls, which is crazy. It had about a 3 year dev time in total. And in that early stage, in like the prototyping phase, it was floundering. They didn't have a clear vision. They weren't going anywhere. It was already looking like a disaster. And Miyazaki, who has an amazing story himself, maybe we'll talk about this in the Souls ranking episode, but he came to the company at a sort of old age. He was working on the Armored Core series, and he saw this going on with Demon Souls, and he actually requested to take over. He figured, what am I going to lose? And he loved this sort of dark fantasy and always wanted to make a game like that. So he took over. He wasn't originally the director for it. He was working on Armored Core 4 Answer as the director of that, which came out in 2008. So those were being jointly developed at the same time. And he made some changes. It was originally in first person, just like Kingsfield, just like Oblivion. I guess they wanted to make it first person and third person. He was like, no, no, no. Let's just stick it to third person. That's going to give us more options to make this combat better and more intricate. He moved it away from the idea of an Elder Scrolls like, and he moved it away from being a Kingsfield like. And he even in interviews would say it was not really meant to be a successor to Kingsfield. It was its own thing, which I get because I played Kingsfield games and they're like not good.
Yeah, it's
They're a
hard. I
slog.
literally played the first Shadow Tower, which is very similar to Kingsfield.
Hmm.
I don't know, maybe a month ago. I think you had even asked me about doing a Shadow Tower episode, and
Hmm.
I respect a lot about it, but just the playing experience is really rough.
Yeah. And I think he probably felt that way too and just wanted
Yeah,
something better. You know, he wanted that focus on that deeper combat. And he wanted to bring back the feeling of hardcore classic RPGs. And he wanted players to feel rewarded simply from playing the game, not from trying to get loot or trying to get to the next cutscene or anything like that. He just wanted it to be a holistically enjoyable experience with feelings of triumph scattered throughout. In any case, the game came out in 2009, and here we are. It wasn't a success in Japan, and Sony, they considered it a failure, and they didn't want to publish it outside of
yeah.
Japan. They're just like, nah, we're not wasting our resources on this. This game sucks. The president of Sony Japan actually said this game was terrible. I played it for hours and I was still at the beginning of the game. It's just a wholly awful game. And then later came back and said, "Yeah, I was so wrong. I just didn't understand the basically the gold mine we had here with this
Yeah.
Souls game." But luckily, Western reviewers and gamers imported it, and we had really early reviews at RPG Fan and PSW Magazine UK and Eurogamer, and I found it through friend of the show and prior guest Jeffrey Matleff, who also imported the Asian version that had completely English audio, and a lot of people did that and enjoyed it. And these import reviews started coming out here in the West, and it started to gain buzz. And when it came out here, it was received much, much better. And it went on to spawn the Dark Souls series and lift Miyazaki up to his position at FromSoftware. It was a great story. I mean, I love that.
Yeah.
Like going from like zero to hero, Demon Souls. In 2020, it had a remake, which I might have played for this episode because my PS3 literally died when I was level 25 on the PS3 version.
No.
Yeah, I don't know what it was. Maybe I'm thinking it's like thermal paste because it'll it would play for a while and then just cut off. I guess it's overheating or something. Man, so many years later, my old PS3 Slim
had to happen eventually. You know, all good things must come to an end.
Yeah, so sad. So speaking of the reviews, you wanna hit us with a few review scores from around the time of release?
We have 1UP giving it an A. Edge Magazine gave it a 9 out of 10. Eurogamer, which you mentioned, gave it a 9 out of 10. Game Informer a 9 out of 10. GameSpot a 9 out of 10. Lots of 9 out of 10s. Mm-hmm. IGN with a 9.4 out of 10. Overall Metacritic score of 89 out of 100. So that lukewarm Japanese reception, very different story once it was released over here in North America.
Yeah. Yeah, and GamerNode.com, 9.5 out of 10.
Absolutely. Inzauto. I hear that guy's pretty good at reviewing games.
Sometimes. No, sometimes I get it way different from the rest of the reviewers. We're going to have to bring Too Human to this podcast.
Oh, boy.
I had the highest review ever for the highest rating ever.
That's funny.
Hey, sometimes we like bad games. Okay. Awards. It earned some awards. You know, it was overall Game of the Year at GameSpot that year. It was Game of the Year at PC World. It was RPG of the Year at RPG Gamer. RP Gamer? Game Trailers awarded Best RPG and Best New Intellectual Property. And IGN gave it Best RPG for the PS3 specifically, I think, which is interesting. XPlay awarded the multiplayer as Best Gameplay Innovation of the Year. And then later on, in 2015, Edge ranked the game 20th on their list of the greatest video games of all time.
I would like to just note how big of a deal it was for GameSpot to give it Game of the Year. I was very, very much in the GameSpot community at the time. On the forums, we had an RPG Temple forum, people I still know online that we talk to each other all these years later. And I remember that community freaking out because this is the year Uncharted 2 came out. This is the year Batman Arkham Asylum came out. I don't think anyone expected GameSpot to give it Game of the Year. And that was a really prestigious award back then. So it was a huge shock and a huge deal at the time.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, Assassin's Creed 2, I think.
Oh, was that 09?
I think so.
I think you're right. Yeah.
I'm looking at the GamerNode 2009 Nodi Awards.
Oh, well, there you go.
So yeah, Assassin's Creed 2 was our 2009 Game of the Year because it wasn't up to me. And yeah, Uncharted 2, like you said, some other great games that came out that year. You said Arkham Asylum. What else? Halo 3 ODST, Grand Theft Auto episodes from Liberty City, New Super Mario Brothers Wii, Street Fighter 4 came out that year, Tekken 6, Empire Total War, Dragon Age Origins, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, Borderlands. Yeah.
Wow, that's a heavy hitter of a year. Wow.
Yeah, big time. We gave it Biggest Surprise at GamerNode.
Okay. That makes sense.
And on Big Red Potion, we gave it Game of the Year in 2009. And again in 2010, I think. Oddly, somehow we managed to do that.
Yeah, some kind of loophole to make that work.
Yeah, because it came out so late in the year in the US. So yeah, it got a lot of awards. Anyway, It was well received then when it finally came to the West, but how did we receive it in 2024? Because we played it.
We did.
We played it. Did you finish it? Did you get all the way through?
I did.
Okay. Which one did you play? Or did you play both?
I played the original on PS3, although I have a PlayStation 5, and I played through the remake when it came out, and dabbled with it again recently just to check it out.
Mm-hmm.
But I played the original on my PS3 for this.
Okay, great. So we played through, and we learned some stuff. Let's talk about, what do you think is sort of the essence of a Demon's Souls, Dark Souls game? Is it the difficulty?
That's a good question. I think, and I've seen a lot in interviews with Miyazaki in which he states it's less about making a game difficult and more about creating a feeling of accomplishment.
Yeah.
In which you can celebrate your victories. And I think that with the mechanics of the combat are what make these games really special to me. Not that there aren't, great things in lots of different areas, but that elation you feel when you are hitting this brick wall, but you feel motivated to keep doing it because you know the satisfaction that's going to come with achieving this.
Mm-hmm.
I think there are no games out there that quite match that feeling. And I know that's a big thing for Miyazaki and kind of a design philosophy. So, the word difficult, right? There's been lots of conversations online about difficulty in Souls games, but I think it's less about that difficulty and more about the patience and the kind of fortitude to overcome these challenges and feel good about yourself after doing it. And that's what really makes a Souls game to me.
Yeah, it's funny. When they were developing the game, they thought it was important to hide the fact that it was so difficult and to hide the gameplay loop of dying and trying again from the Sony production executives, because they thought they would ask for it to be changed.
Right, which I'm sure they would have.
So they just kept that a secret.
I love that.
And
That's
what
great.
Miyazaki said about difficulty was, making the game difficult was never the goal. What we primarily aimed for is to provide a sense of accomplishment in overcoming the challenges faced in difficulties. We understood that having high difficulty is just one way to provide an intense feeling of accomplishment through preparing strategies, overcoming obstacles, and discovering new things. Our goal of providing a sense of accomplishment has been the foundation of the game since we started development, and it is something we never strayed from. I think Demon's Souls is a really difficult game. However, I designed the game so that even I, who am not good at action games, can clear it. I want players to think and strategize. The more it tests your resolve, the more satisfying the triumph. And that aligns exactly with what you just said. So straight from the Miyazaki mouth. Yeah. To me, I'm thinking about when I first played it, and I was really taken by the control system, actually. The deliberate combat. I think Bayonetta came out around this time.
I think that's right. Within a year or so, either 08 or 09. Or maybe Bayonetta was shortly after. Somewhere around there, though.
Bayonetta was released on January 5th, 2010 in the US.
Yeah. Okay.
So just a couple months after. But there's a big difference in the way combat works in games like that and Demon's Souls, which looks like a game like that, right? You look at it and you're like, oh, look, it's a, same perspective, characters like kind of large on the screen. We're behind them with the camera trailing, and we got weapons in our hands. But in this game, we had our shoulder buttons mapped to our two arms with a strong attack and a weak attack for R2 and R1. And, same thing in the left hand. R1 weak, or L1 weak, L2 strong if we put a weapon over there. Or we could put a shield and you hold it up and the L2 would parry. So you had this very specific, it's almost like riding a motorcycle where you have all these controls on your two hands.
Right.
And that was just really cool because it felt so different from what had been available. And the precision required, like you said, with the animations of committing to an attack and using the available time, to have the correct timing, to
Hmm.
wait and counter. It's almost kind of like Punch Out in a way, choosing
Sure.
your spots to get your hits in, and the deliberate nature of the weapons themselves. It wasn't very flashy. That's something that's different now in like Elden Ring, for example, or Dark Souls 3 or Bloodborne or maybe Sekiro even. You do a lot more flashy, big, crazy jumping types of things. In Demon Souls, the weapons were just very realistic. You like had the broadsword, the longsword, the spear, the axe. Very standard, real
Yeah.
type weapons that were swung in very realistic ways and occupied the space in a very specific way. And you had to really manipulate your weapons in the space. And they also paid very close attention to your environment when you're swinging your weapons. I remember playing Demon Souls and, came up now playing it again, knowing that it's important to position yourself so that your weapons don't clang off of the wall
Right.
next to you.
Hmm.
And they kind of got away from that later. They opened up the space a lot more. But in Demon Souls, they would put you in these narrow little corridors a lot where you had to
Yeah.
pick out the correct weapon or use the weapon you had, use the attack specifically that thrusted instead of swung if you were in a
Hmm.
corridor, or, hit from the right instead of the left or whatever it was. And I found that combat system to be incredibly rewarding. Is that something that really stood out to you then or now? Or is it something that kind of take for granted? Or is it not that big a deal? What do you think?
I think when I first played it, I certainly took that for granted because I was so focused on that difficulty, right? And it was one of those cases where, I just hadn't fully understood what it was going for, much like the PlayStation executive, although I wasn't as negative about it. And I think when I went back to it in that 2013 time, when I played Dark Souls, when I played that again, I had a greater appreciation for those combat mechanics. Because I think, like you said, the controls alone were so different because you'd always have attacks on face buttons in all these kinds of games.
Hmm.
Simply having that on the triggers felt so different, but so natural as well. It was one of those cases where you think, how did it take this long for this to become a normal thing for an action RPG? Because it feels so good to hold up a shield with the left trigger, attack with the right trigger, and then use your items with face buttons. So I think I had a much greater appreciation for it after playing Dark Souls 1, after going back to it, and even going back to it now in 2024, I still feel like it feels so great for a 15-year-old game.
Hmm.
The mechanics are so strong that they have easily stood the test of time, and it just shows how forward thinking that was back in 2009.
Yeah. Yeah. It was super innovative, it felt like to me, for sure. And was innovative in a lot of different ways as well. I'm gonna, skip over the atmosphere, which we can get to a little bit later. But other
Yeah.
gameplay things that were wholly unique at the time was the suite of multiplayer options, which
Yeah.
I think in my review I called it a massively single player game. And Miyazaki agrees. He
Yeah.
is on record as saying the focus of the game is a single player experience, but with this help, this transient help from people who you don't know and will never know, but you are connected. And he delights in looking at the bloodstains to help him in certain areas. And what else was there? There was the messaging system. You
Hmm.
have in this game, you're constantly online, and you can leave messages on the ground from a preset list of parts of messages and kind of piece it together to help tell people, what might be coming up, or of course to troll them, which was funny in the beginning, but not so funny
Lost its luster.
after after a while. Yeah, try jumping is a big one.
Yeah.
And sometimes that would work. Someone would say, try stepping or take a step forward, whatever it is. And I remember in Boletarian Palace, the very first level, using a message to step off of the top of the castle rampart. You get up to a part where there are a bunch of catapults, and there's a
Yeah.
blue-eyed knight and some archers and stuff. And in the middle, there's a broken piece of wall. And I remember a message being right there the first time I played. It wasn't there this time, but you step off there and you can get some, I think you get a weapon down there, like
Yeah, crossbow, I want to
something.
say.
Maybe it was a
Yeah.
crossbow, something like that. And it was like really cool. You know, and that happened all the time. And you
Yeah.
would get these messages and it would just be so great. And then the bloodstains, they would show the last moments of a player's death. So you could see, oh boy, there's a lot of bloodstains over here. There must be something going on that I need to be wary of. And then you would watch how they died. So it had all these cross game connections between players.
Yeah, I
Very
loved
cool.
how it felt. It's a game that can feel isolating, but
Mm-hmm.
you can share that isolation with others. It's this very unique
Yeah,
mixture of multiplayer, but you still feel alone in a way. And I
yeah.
just
You're
think it's so
struggling together
brilliant.
though. You're like alone,
Yeah,
but
you're
you're
struggling together.
struggling alone together. You know other people are out there
Yeah,
facing the same hardships that you are,
right.
which
The
is
way it
really
builds
cool.
that community is really cool.
Yeah. And this reminds me of the story that Miyazaki tells that kind of was his inspiration. Was one day he was driving and I think it was a snowy night or something, and he came to a hill and cars couldn't make it up the hill because it was too
Oh yeah.
slippery.
Hmm.
So a car pushed the car in front of it to help it get up the hill. And then the next car pushed that one, and the next car pushed that one, and then he got to the top, and he couldn't stop to like thank the person behind him because he had to keep that momentum. And then he said he remembers getting home and wondering if the last person made it. And he also wondered, if I met these people, would we be friends? Would we have arguments? But I'll never know. So he
Yeah.
kind of incorporated that, helping people in your same situation across this sort of impenetrable barrier, of they're in their cars. That's like being in their version of the game. And he did it also because he wanted to take away the obstacles for your standard cooperative play, like having a headset, using voice. Voice, we
Mm-hmm.
know, can be horrible in games because people can be horrible. So he made these limiting factors to allow for this cooperation, but make it just enough, right?
Yeah.
Super cool. And we're talking about all these cooperative things and the things that help you, but you also have invasions. Oh man.
Oh, of course.
So I
Yes.
didn't get invaded this time because I played almost entirely in soul form, which we can talk about in a bit.
Oh, okay.
But
Yeah.
the first time I played, getting invaded was horrifying. Like all the time, I
Yeah.
was terrified to be invaded, and it was super stressful. And when it happened, it was just worse back then because it was the first time in a Souls game, and you're trying to succeed. You don't know where you're going, when the level's going to end, how close you are, when you're going to hit a shortcut. And then you
Hmm.
get that message and you're like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And you have the whole run of the entire level to try to either fight this person who's coming to kill you or to get away. Did you do any invading or get invaded this time? I don't think it's possible on PS3 anymore, is it, huh?
No, there is I believe there's a private server some fans still keep that I think I jumped into it like a year or two ago. It's pretty neat that people are still doing that. But
Mm.
no, I was just offline for this one because the servers are down. I didn't do any invading or get invaded here, but on the PlayStation 5 version when I was playing that, Originally, when it came out, I did dabbled a little bit in it.
Yeah, that was crazy. I don't know what do you get for invading? You get some sort of benefit when you invade and kill someone.
I think that's right, because I would get invaded, but I wasn't doing a lot of invading, so I don't
Mm.
quite remember.
But you definitely do get rewards from helping other people. You can summon,
Absolutely.
which has continued. So has the invasion, but a big part of it was summoning help to help you with either bosses or certain parts of the level. And I didn't do that because another part of the game is this dual existence. Like you can either be in human form, like body
Hmm.
form, or soul form. And that sort of continued throughout the Souls series also, where being in body form has the benefit of you have more health. Um, I guess that's it, right? You have more
I think
health.
it's the main thing, yeah.
Yeah. And in soul form, you lose half of your health unless you have a special ring. Then you lose a quarter. But if you're in soul form, you can't be invaded. You're safe from that. And then that is also tied to another weirdly esoteric system, the
Oh
world
boy.
tendency.
Tendency time. Here we go.
Yeah. This did not continue through the Souls franchise,
No.
but this time around I really manipulated it. It's this weird thing where as you die, things get harder. What? You
I know, right?
It's like, "Oh, you're having a bad time. Let's make this harder for you." What? Are you crazy? Yeah, if you die while you're in human form or body form, your world tendency continues to go to black, which is like pure black is the worst. Enemies get
Right.
harder, even more enemies may appear. It's just as worse things happen in that area gets worse. As more good things happen in that area, i.e., defeating a greater demon like one of the bosses or helping someone else, then things get better. Or even like killing certain like black phantoms that are in the world. If you kill one of them, it'll
Right.
bump up to white. And as you do that, things get better. And then as you get to certain degrees of black or white, now you're seeing new content. You're seeing new characters appear that you can talk to and then make them come
Or
back to your
items you
hub
can
world. New
access.
items you can
Yeah.
get, things like that. And if you go dark, it's usually someone trying to kill you. Or like a primeval demon showing up, which you can get a special
Right.
item from. So both are good. And you can manipulate this. And one of the main ways is to, whenever you turn to body form, you go back to your hub world, the Nexus, which we can
Yeah.
talk about next, and kill
Mhm.
yourself there by jumping off a high
Oh
thing.
yeah.
And that
I
doesn't
have
affect
jumped
anything.
off so many ledges. There's so many bloodstains there. Everyone does it.
Yeah. So the next, you want to talk about the structure of the world, because it's not the same in all the Souls games, and this one had its own Super Mario 64-esque hub world.
Right. I like that. I've never thought of that in the same way, but you're absolutely right. Because you have that kind of hub area. It's called the Nexus in Demon Souls. And I really think this is a strength of the game. I kind
Mm.
of miss them trying things like this in that you have this hub, and then there are these stones you can go up to, and they take you to different worlds. So you start off in the Boletaria Palace, and that entire world is kind of castle themed, ramparts, things like that. You have kind of an underground tunnel stone. You have a really creepy prison. A couple other ones. There's a poison valley. And within each of those stones, there are kind of bespoke levels almost. So I feel like typically people will say, oh, I did this in 1-3 or I did this in 4-1 because each of those is a level you can
Mm-hmm.
start at once you finish a level. And I really like that structure a lot because it feels so much different from the rest of the Souls games, which try to be very interconnected. I kind of
Mm.
like this idea of this mysterious nexus and you get teleported to different lands. I think it gives it its own identity in the world design. So I still to this day really enjoyed that.
Okay. Yeah. A lot of people actually will say the major strength of Dark Souls is its fully interconnected world that you have to run through to get
Yeah.
anywhere, and you can't teleport like that until much later. But no, I agree with you. I like the way this was done for this game, jumping exactly back to where you're trying to proceed from and get to the
Hmm.
next, checkpoint essentially, which is, beating the next demon. And then within each of those areas, it still had some of that loop back. It usually had like one
Yeah.
or two shortcuts. So you
Yeah,
get so
absolutely.
far in that area and you unlock, like, say you kick a ladder down, or you knock over a bridge, or you open a gate that you couldn't get through from the front, but you can open it from behind, and now it connects back to the beginning. So you skip past half the level. And then
Yeah.
basically the next time you try, you're able to go from there, which is really cool design. I think that's excellent design.
Oh, absolutely. I think it's a huge strength of the series, and I like that Demon Souls still provides that in more of a bite-sized way.
Hmm.
I think that gives it its own identity, like I said, but that's always been a huge strength of the series, is that kind of shortcut design, and I like that it's still in Demon Souls as well.
Yeah. Yeah, one thing about this, as far as the vibe, and I always think about the Souls games in terms of vibe, atmosphere, that sort of thing.
I like that.
So Dark Souls, again, praised for its entirely vertical and looping
Hmm.
back on itself world, that was its own thing. But the spoke design here, and also in Dark
Hmm.
Souls 2, it makes you feel like you're going very far in one direction. It feels like
Mm-hmm.
an adventure. You just keep going, you see what's ahead, what's ahead, what's
Right, deeper into
ahead.
the territory. Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, it feels like, you're not right on top of where you end up the whole time, which is
Yeah.
interesting and cool sometimes. But for this, it's like, no, I traveled this whole distance. And that's pretty cool. I think I like
Yeah,
that.
I like that way of
I
thinking of
like
it. Like
both.
you're heading deeper into the territories and exploring and adventuring even more.
Yeah. And you know what? Speaking of level design, how perfect was Boletaria 1, that first level? Come on
Oh,
now.
one of the all-time great openings of a
Thank
game.
you.
Absolutely.
So good.
Like the dragons and the looping design. You have the boss gate at the beginning. You end up back at the boss gate at the beginning. Oh, just so much good stuff there. You got a super hard enemy off the beaten path. Like
Mm-hmm.
all kinds of good stuff.
Enemies always there around the corner, waiting to ambush
Hmm.
you. They really prime
Yep.
you for that. You
Yeah.
also can't do any leveling up, and you can't go anywhere else until you've
That's
completed
right.
that level.
Yeah.
And the second one does like something completely different. Sends you down that straight path with the dragons.
Right. Long bridge,
Uh-huh. And
underground area. Yeah.
and I like how a lot of times the game gives you those safe areas amid a lot of hell around you. So like
Yeah.
in that level you can climb up on one of those towers in between the sections where the dragon will blast you with fire, and you can kind of
Hmm.
see, oh, what's ahead? How does this thing
Right.
move? How can I plan? And then it has multiple paths. You can go either on top or below. And they do that throughout the game. They give you all these different options for exploring the space. And all of the 5 archstones lead you to pretty different worlds. It's definitely like, I wouldn't say biomes, but differently themed areas, which I like. One of
Yeah,
my,
very distinct art styles across the board for all five of those.
yeah, I like that. Did you have a favorite? Do you have a favorite like archstone area?
Oh, absolutely. It's easily Tower of Latria.
Mm.
Easily. I mean, you talked
The
about
creepiest
atmosphere and
one.
vibes.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Like the first level of Tower of Latria is an all-timer in terms of just the awful feeling you get as you're walking through it, how dark it is, and all these prisons and the sounds you hear, and then
Yeah.
the random singing.
Help me!
There are very few levels that top that in terms of just dripping with atmosphere.
Terrifying. That is a
Yes.
terrifying level. Those enemies that look like Cthulhu's that shoot,
Yeah.
they're like
The
wizards and they
tentacle
shoot. Oh
heads.
my
Yeah.
god. The way they move is like they're in a strobe
Oh
light,
gosh.
but not. You know,
Right.
they're like that staccato, jerky move. It's really
Uh-huh.
just
Yeah,
terrifying.
it really is.
Man, yeah.
Do you have a favorite? Is that also your
That
favorite? How highly you're
that is
speaking
my
of it?
Tower of Latria 1 is my favorite in this game.
Nice.
It's one of my favorites in all of the Souls franchise.
Yeah, I feel the same. It's so strong.
And then we have bosses. We didn't even talk about bosses.
Mm-hmm.
So Miyazaki wanted every boss to have like its thing. And in this game, you get a lot of these very special, like, quote, like gimmick bosses or puzzle bosses where
Yeah.
you have to kind of figure out what the thing about them is. What are some examples that really stood out to you?
Well, I feel like the early one that really introduces that is the Tower Knight,
Mm,
where you have to get his legs to get him to fall down to hit the weak point. I feel like that's that early one. I wouldn't really call the first one a gimmicky boss fight, although I guess there is some of that where you have to kind of defeat the ads to open up the weak point. But the Tower Knight is always the one that comes to mind with that.
yeah, plus it has the little enemies around the side shooting at
Right.
you.
There's all the archers up top there shooting at you. So my go-tos always go up, kill all of them, don't have to worry about arrows, and then fight the Tower Knight.
Yep. I like the Fool's Idol is really cool. That one got me the first
Oh,
time I
yeah.
played.
Did it?
Yeah, because the Fool's Idol, if you guys don't know, you have to go fight this enemy, but you can't hurt it. And you're like, why? Why? What's going on here? And it's because you have to go in a different direction through this little door, up these stairs, all the way down a path, all the way to the end. And a guy is just like sitting there
Yeah.
doing some magic thing.
Yeah.
And he is essentially reviving the
Mhm.
Fool's Idol or making the Fool's Idol invulnerable. So if you don't go and kill this guy before going into the boss, then
Yeah.
you are out of luck.
That's such a wild decision. Like, just
Yeah.
the boldness of making a boss that you literally can't kill until you randomly kill this dude that's up top that seems like a nice guy. That's so wild.
Yeah. There's so many there's so many good ones. The Storm
Oh.
King, where you have to
Storm
find
King with the
a
sword.
weapon.
Yeah.
And it's like it's not even given to you. In later games, like in Dark Souls 3, they do the same thing, but they just basically
Yes.
hand you the
They just
weapon.
hand you the weapon, basically.
Essentially.
Yeah.
In this one, you're in a huge open area with crap all in
Mhm.
your way and tons of these manta rays in the sky shooting
Yeah.
spears at you. And a
Right.
giant one that is the boss, and you can't hit it. Like, what are you going to do? Shoot it with arrows. And you really can't. So you're struggling through this and you're running around, and then all the way around the corner, down the ledge, you see at the base of some, I don't know if it's a gravestone or just some sort of like monolith, some rock.
Mhm.
It's just a weapon is there, and you read it and it's like, oh, this can kill the whatever it is, and you use it and it creates this giant wave of energy that
Like
hits this thing.
anime-esque.
Yeah. And that's the first time they did anything like that, but it was epic. I remember the first time I
Oh,
played that. It was amazing. You've got
I
the
feel like we're forgetting one of the bigger ones, though, which sadly I could not experience playing on the original PS3. If we think back to Latria, the final boss of the Latria area is another player, which is so cool and infuriating because there's unskippable cutscenes, and if you keep dying, it takes a while.
Yeah, the old
I don't
monk.
remember the old monk. Yeah, because they're kind of using another player as a vessel, so it's literally a PvP fight as the final boss.
That was very cool. I think that's Miyazaki's favorite, actually. I read that in an interview.
Okay.
Yeah, and they reused that later on in a really cool, an incredible boss fight later on. The Mirror Knight, whatever it's called, in Dark Souls 2 was incredible.
Mhm.
The atmosphere to that.
Yeah.
But they did the same thing.
Right.
But yeah, that's a cool one. You have like simple things like there's the old hero who is blind. So if you're quiet, you can attack him and and not get attacked back.
Mm-hmm.
You have the dragon god, who is basically just a big. It's almost like American Gladiators, the gauntlet, where they're shooting at you with
Right.
the big
Yeah.
tennis ball machine. You have to hide behind stuff so he
Yeah.
can't see you and attack you.
That one I don't like, though, because I feel like I'll be hidden and they'll still hit me. I feel like the hitbox is very...
Mm.
I like the idea, but the hitbox just doesn't work for that fight.
Interesting thing about that is I literally never had a problem with it. I played Demon Souls on
Really?
PS3 numerous
Wow.
times through, and I always thought it was just like a gimme fight. Somehow I never got hit by him. But then I played the PS5 version, and I felt like
Uh-huh.
he saw me all the time, and I was like, "Oh, now this is
Okay.
how I really have to play this fight." And you have
Right.
to like run behind a column, hide, wait,
Mhm.
watch him with the
Right.
camera. Okay, he's not
See
looking.
where the eyes
Keep
are.
going, run, and then you shoot him with these two big spears, pins him
Mhm.
down. He's kind of helpless, and you go down there and just finish him off. Super epic
Right.
fight, but I guess if it's frustrating, it's frustrating. I've heard
Right.
that
If
sentiment
it happens dozens of times, it loses
Oh,
the
no.
impact, right?
before. Oh no.
Yeah.
Another one of my favorites is Maiden Estrella.
Go forth, Galvinland. May you be unharmed. Leave us, Slayer of Demons. This is a sanctuary for the lost and wretched. There is nothing here for you to pillage or plunder. Please, leave quietly. This is our home. We have done no harm to you.
Oh man. That one is atmosphere out the wazoo. It's got this amazing
absolutely.
music. You come into this huge area. The depraved ones are all kind of worshiping Maiden Estrella, who's like this Mother Teresa figure to them. She has come to that area to kind of help them, I guess, although that's sort of questionable according
Help
to
in
the
quotes,
lady.
you know.
Yeah, we don't know for sure. But
Yeah.
she says, "Please leave us. We're peaceful." And you go down. She sends her faithful knight to attack you. You can either fight him, or run past him, or use arrows from a distance, and then you just kind of kill her.
Dear Lord,
And
Yeah.
she's like, "Why?"
Right, she just
you are too cruel.
yeah, just so different from what you'd expect.
So sad.
And
Is that
so
not-
sad. Like right, that storytelling in things other than cutscenes, right?
Yeah,
Even just
inside the
that
battle.
boss fight is telling a story, right?
You will not turn back, will you?
Best music in the game, you're right though.
I shall let no harm come to dearest Estrella. May you rot in the deepest depths of this swamp.
Yeah. Oh, and the final boss too, really is
Yeah.
tricky. Like you think you're about to get into something big, and it like totally subverts that expectation, and it's just like a feeble,
Right, helpless blob kind of thing.
whatever. Like, just
Yeah.
like- it's actually the old king. It's King Allant.
Yeah.
Who
Right.
we didn't talk about the story. I don't think most people care about the story, but the whole point of the game is this demon has come back because of King Allant's use of soul arts in the
Mhm.
kingdom. You're not supposed to do this. It awakens the demon. He comes, he feeds on souls. A dark miasma covers the land, and then things start turning into demons also, I guess.
Yeah. I don't know much beyond that. It's not I know there's lore and I know the item descriptions give more lore. I was
Mhm.
never the kind of Souls player where I'm in the inventory looking at the item descriptions all the time. But I respect what it's trying to do, and I think I read an interview where Miyazaki said he would read those kind of adventure RPG books that were in English,
Yep.
and he didn't know English, so he would try to make his own story based on what he thought was happening. And that's very similar to what you
Yeah.
can do reading item descriptions,
Yeah, exactly.
considering the NPCs.
I am that kind of player. I love this archaeological storytelling.
That's a good way to say it, yeah.
But I think it works better in the Dark Souls games. I think it's better fleshed out. I think the story is is more fully written. They've built the world. They've created a bigger set of lore and all that.
Yeah, I will say I'm more tempted to dive in the other Souls games or Bloodborne compared to Demon's Souls. I think
is just ridiculous.
It's so crazy.
Yeah. But this one, this one has it too.
Yeah.
All the items have those descriptions. A lot of them tell little tidbits about like Bior of the Twin Fangs and, different characters.
Yeah.
And the game does have a lot of NPCs. You meet a lot of different people throughout these areas and through different means, like different series of events where you talk to them in certain ways or access them to begin with. Like you can't access all of them until you do certain things, find certain keys, whatever it is. Some of them are tied to world tendency, and then they come back to the Nexus and they either provide a service to you, like teaching you spells or miracles, or like doing things that will affect your game, like the murder campaign of what's his name.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. I forget his name, but yeah, basically an NPC that will go around killing people in the Nexus if you do not deal with them.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's a lot of interesting stuff like that. It's just not as accessible as the later games.
Yeah,
but it definitely started.
That's true. Yeah, absolutely.
Atmosphere, graphics were great for the time. Still holds up like a new game, right? The art direction.
Yeah, I think it still looks great because of the art direction and just that dark fantasy style that they really nailed.
Yeah. Yeah, particularly like the ones we said, the Latria is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's all pretty good though. That Valley of Defilement is the most oppressive thing ever made. Like a lot of people are familiar with Blighttown. Valley of Defilement is worse.
Blighttown's nothing compared to Valley of Defilement.
Particularly 5-2, right? The swamp of sorrow.
The swamp. I have a visceral reaction when I play that level or think about that level. There is a physical reaction in my body when I play that level that is just so uncomfortable.
So bad.
And I can't say I hate it because it's so effective, but I genuinely feel uncomfortable when I'm in that level.
Yeah. Luckily, the bosses in that area, the first two, the first three, all three. So they're all like pretty easy, those bosses.
Yeah,
they're like gimmies. The first two are also like the worst in the game, though. The Leechmonger and the Dirty Colossus.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 100% the worst. Man, there's so much. We didn't even talk about the weapons upgrade system. That's true. You have all these basic weapons we talked about, but you can upgrade them. That's like the main way you get stronger is not necessarily by increasing your character as you level up with these souls that you're collecting, but upgrading your weapons with chunks of ore, essentially.
Right. Although I would say in the same way you mentioned the lore in Demon's Souls being a start, but it got better as the series went on. I feel very much the same way about the upgrade system in this game.
Got more accessible.
There are different... a lot more accessible. The different types of upgrade materials felt more meaningful.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like if you just upgrade with the normal ore in this game, you get what you need. You don't really need to worry about sharp or elemental and really...
Oh yeah, there was so much in this one. It's like there's a different type of rock for every kind of weapon you ever want. Well, there's got to be
and even
like
the boss. Yeah, and even the boss weapons felt limited in a way that's not the case in later games, where there's a few good ones, like the meat cleaver, I think, is incredible. I think that's a boss weapon you can make, but not a lot that I was really interested in. So the weapons themselves, I think, are strong, but the upgrade system felt very kind of nascent and not fully developed yet.
Yeah. Yeah, almost like well, in a way, it's exciting and interesting because I remember just stumbling upon them. Like you would get to a +3 on one of your regular weapons or a +6, and all of a sudden it would be like, oh, you can make this totally different weapon out of your straight sword. And I'm like, whoa, wait, what? And it's because you have a boss soul in your possession.
Yeah.
And they would
Right.
show it to you actually, even if you didn't have it. So you would get an
Something
idea.
to
But one
strive
thing I
for,
like
yeah.
about it also is that once you get to the boss weapon, you don't have to upgrade it anymore. It's like that's its final
That's
form,
it. Yeah.
which I think is
Mhm.
cool. I think I might have preferred that they stick with that with
Yeah.
later games. But
I get that. I like the
they
simplicity.
try
of
different
that.
things. But that was cool.
Right.
Music, we said, was amazing. Amazing throughout, actually. We said a couple of the tracks, but pretty much every track was awesome. They changed some
Well,
of them
and a
for
lot
the
more
remake.
of it. Yeah. And there's a lot more of it compared to the rest of the series in Demon Souls, I feel like.
More or just more diverse?
Maybe that's it. Maybe the
Yeah.
actual quantity isn't quite. Yeah, maybe they just stand out more.
Yeah, later
Yeah.
games, they all kind of like started to sound the same.
hmm
In this one, each boss had it like a unique sounding theme
Right.
that really set the vibe for that fight. I'm saying vibe a lot. Set the mood, set the
It's
tone.
a vibe. It's a vibe.
It's a
spread
vibe game.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this was a different composer. This was Shunsuke Kida was the composer for this, and there was a different composer for the Dark Souls games. So
okay.
I don't know. I like Shunsuke Kida.
Yeah, it's really good
I
music.
don't even know
Absolutely.
who that is, but good job. Good job composing.
He could put that on the resume.
Yeah.
They said good job on Smash
Yeah. Man, I don't know. Is there more that we have to talk about here, or should we jump to our?
There's so much more we could. I do just want to ask you, what weapon are you rolling with?
Oh right, and what class did we start
And what class?
with? I started.
I gotta know.
I started as royalty because I've never
Yeah.
used magic in this game before, even though I've played it like
Really?
4 or
Okay.
5 times. So I used that soul arrow to start, and it was awesome.
Oh my god!
And then I
It's
got
so broken.
the upgrade, the soul, whatever, just the better soul arrow.
The next one, yeah.
But my weapon, I went with the blue blood sword this time.
Really?
Because I had always been
Okay.
curious about it. The only thing is, it makes it kind of hard. It makes you struggle in like the mid game because you have to upgrade 4 stats to use it. You have to upgrade strength, dex,
Oh, right.
faith, and magic to 18 before you can even wield this thing.
Ooh, yeah, that's a big
And
requirement.
then-
Wow.
It scales off of luck. What?
Yes, yes.
But
I
it's
was
awesome.
about to ask you, is that the one that scales with luck?
It's awesome. It's a strong weapon eventually, and it's got that straight sword moveset.
Yeah,
Really good. What about you?
yeah. So when I first played, I was royalty,
Oh,
which
really?
made the game a lot easier.
See, I was not when I first played. When I first played, I
years
did like a
ago,
basic
yeah.
fighting kind of guy. Dex. I did Dex.
Yeah.
The first time I played, I was Dex boy.
Oh, so that's what I did this time.
Oh,
Because
okay.
I started out as, what is it called? I think Wanderer is
Yep.
the one with high dex.
Yep,
to
that's the
start.
one that I started with
Um,
first time I ever played.
Yes. And I immediately went for the Uchi Katana in 4-1. One of my all-time
Mm.
favorite Souls weapons. Give me a katana in a video game, I am going to use it, and I used it well.
Nice.
I also...
Don't try that in Dark
I don't know
Souls
if-
3. Dex doesn't work.
Yeah,
Light
not
weapons
not
don't
as well,
work.
unfortunately. Yeah, Dex is great. I really like Dex builds, though. And what I would do, and I love this combination, there's a shield called the Adjudicator Shield, which
Mm.
has this really beautiful illustration on it. I
Yep.
think it was like a fan contest. Someone won the contest, and that became a shield in the game. If you equip that, it's not a great shield, but it heals you over time. And if you put on the Regenerator's Ring, and you just two-hand the Uchi Katana, you are dealing damage and always healing.
Mm-hmm.
And it is fantastic.
Yeah. I love that shield too. But it doesn't block all damage. But like you said, if you
No.
two-hand, you just have it on your back. So you get to look
Right.
at it, first of all.
You get to look at the cool picture, and, you
And
get
it heals
Yeah.
you. And you don't have to worry about blocking. Just dodge all the time.
Right, just get good at dodging, which is always my way of playing these games. I don't level up vitality much,
Mm-hmm.
and I just really try to learn the dodging system.
Yeah. And that's another great thing about all these games, really. It's like you choose how you're going to play through.
Yeah.
It's not just like everyone has the same experience. In so many different ways, the experience is tailored to your particular playthrough. From the weapon, your leveling, the just your style, like you said, you can two-hand and just roll. You can carry a big shield and block. You
Right.
can wear
All the
super
heaviest
heavy
armor.
armor and just
Yeah.
tank hits. All kinds of different ways to play.
Magic only.
Magic
Pick
only.
people off with arrows all the time. Yeah.
Yeah, really good. There's 3 different levels of rolling to dodge. Like you could,
Yeah.
based
Right.
on how much weight you're carrying. Oh, you know what's
Yeah.
terrible in this game though?
Oh, the items.
Item
the
encumbrance.
The weight on the health items. Ugh.
My goodness, because in later games, your equipped items have an effect on you. Whatever's equipped affects your roll and everything. But in
not
this
your
game,
inventory.
your whole inventory was limited, and you had to keep going back to the Nexus and dropping it off.
Right. Which is improved in the remake, which you
Yeah.
mostly played. It's worse in the original.
Yeah. In the remake, you can just click a button in your inventory and it says send to storage. And when you pick up new items, they'll go automatically to storage.
Well, and I don't know if you know, they changed even the amount of weight for the health items in the remake.
They're lighter?
Like they brought it down a little bit.
Oh, they were still a lot. And all the chunks, all of your ore and upgrade materials have weight, and it's kind of a lot because they're rocks. So I'm just constantly, in the original, going back to the Nexus to drop them all off.
Right.
In the remake, clicking through your inventory to send them all back. But I
it's
ran
a lot
into that a
easier
lot
that way.
this time because I think it was, I don't know, one of them is endurance, one of them is vitality or strength or something. Like 2 different stats govern the 2 types of item encumbrance
you're right.
in this game.
Yeah, there's like equipment load and then overall like inventory load.
Yeah, it wasn't ideal. But,
no, definitely not.
It was like
They're
Elder
learning.
Scrolls 4
They're
Oblivion. Same
you
deal.
know what? Yeah. Yeah, they were fighting up against that one, so it makes sense.
We'll make the same crappy decision that they made for item
Yeah, we'll
encumbrance.
do the same mistakes, but our mistakes will be better.
Yeah. Every time we play a game, we're trying to figure out whether this game was worth revisiting all these years later. And maybe should other people go back and play it? If they should, and if it was a smash. If not, well, it was more of a brick. So, Anthony, what are your final thoughts? And is it a smash or a brick, Demon Souls?
I think Demon Souls really swings for the fences with a lot of different ideas, some of which stayed in the series, some that aren't there anymore, like World Tendency and the equipment system we just talked about. But I love how it's so forward thinking in its design and trying so many different things. And even the level system that's not an interconnected world, I love so much. So I feel like it absolutely holds up, and it feels different enough from the rest of the series that it's still absolutely worth playing. It's one of my all-time favorite games now. I loved going back to it, and I think it definitely holds up, and it is easily a smash.
Nice. I think everyone knows what I'm going to say. It's a brick, obviously.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
Sorry. Don't know what to tell you, folks.
No. I would definitely call Demon Souls a smash. And I would even say the PS3 version is still worth playing. Because while the new one...
Yeah, that's how I played it.
Yeah, while the new one has the upgraded visuals and some of these quality of life improvements, I think the first one's fine. But also, some of the changes in the new one even detract a little bit from like some of the art direction liberties they take. And some of the music changes really bothered me.
Yeah.
They took away my Tower Knight music. They changed the opening music a little bit. And it's just not the same. Doesn't have that same feel. They changed the Maiden Estrella music. Although it's still excellent.
Well,
like that was
it's
excellent
good,
both times.
Yeah.
But they made things opulent when they were meant to be simple. They changed a lot of stuff in Latria.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's an incredible looking game, and just in on a pure technical level, I still think it's like one of the most impressive games you could play on PS5. But I do think some of that atmosphere we were really raving about is lost a bit in the remake. But if that's your only way to play it, it's still a great way to play it. And it runs at 60 frames per second on performance mode, which I'm always a big fan of frame rate. So definitely worth checking that out if that's your only option.
Yeah. So smash all around from Anthony and from myself, and that makes Demon Souls worth revisiting in 2024 and beyond. Thank you everyone for listening and playing along with us. And if you enjoy Smashing Bricks and haven't done so yet, go to Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcasting platform. Leave us a generous and helpful 5-star rating and review. You can also go to our Patreon and support us as a patron for as little as $1 a month. I recommend the Fireflower tier, where you can choose a specific game to be played on an upcoming Power Up episode. And you can also go higher and get ongoing recognition on the show, or even join as a guest. And one more thing Editor Eddie wants to jump in here and say is that we are starting Patreon exclusive episodes that will go live 2 weeks after the main episode for the month, and will feature some fun list making, ranking, something about a year in retro gaming, a console, platform, a series, whatever we come up with, and it'll be light and fun, and it'll make you mad. And the first one will become available in about 2 weeks, and it will feature myself and Anthony talking about FromSoftware games. Not quite retro, but fun. We're going to be making a tier list of all the Souls games, Bloodborne, Sekiro, and Elden Ring. And that's at patreon.com/smashingbricks. We have a Discord server where we can talk about literally anything, particularly upcoming and past games, and you can suggest games to be considered for the show. Links to everything, including Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch, can be found in the episode description and at our Linktree, which is linktr.ee/smashingbricks. As for next episode, it will be a Power Up episode, and I will be joined by returning guest Kyle Stalick to play Jedi Knight 2, Jedi Outcast. So, get your hands on a copy, play along, send in your thoughts, and join us next time on Smashing Bricks. That wraps it up for today. I'm still Eddie Inzauto. That is Anthony LaBella. Thanks, Anthony.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was a blast.
And until next time, may the nostalgia be with you. And you're welcome, Anthony. You're always welcome.
Dearest Destroyer, I have failed you.
You killed him, didn't you? Very well. I can no longer resist you. Do as you like. Take your precious demon soul